Hello everyone, and thank you for watching our presentation on using the ISAT2 to assess the capacity to support open educational practices across Ontario. Our research team includes Catherine Lachaîne, Open Educational Librarian at the University of Ottawa, Robert Luke, CEO of eCampus Ontario, and Oya Pakkal, PhD student at Brock University. My name is Rajiv Jhangiani, and I have the privilege of serving as the Vice Provost for Teaching and Learning at Brock University.
This project was inspired by work done by colleagues in Canada and in the Netherlands. Published in 2021, the Institutional Self-Assessment Tool for Open Educational Practices initiative was developed and used by a team in British Columbia, Canada, to assess the progress of open education initiatives of 5 post-secondary institutions in the province. In 2022, a group in the Netherlands developed the Quick Scan Maturity of Open Educational Practices tool based on the work done in BC. Our ISAT2 is an adaptation from each tool and allows us to analyze the capacity and the level of maturity of Ontario's post-secondary institution to support open educational practices. Like the ISAT from BC, this is a self-assessment tool. And we are grateful that the project has been supported by the Social Sciences Humanities Research Council of Canada. Our assessment tool is organized into 6 groupings or broad themes. We have vision and implementation, partnerships, policies, incentives in professional development, institutional supports, leadership and advocacy, and culture change. For each question in groupings, we were providing a scale or dimensions that allows us to better understand the capacity of institutions on different aspects of open educational practices, going from being carried out at the institutional level in an ongoing and sustainable way to being carried out in a limited or incidental fashion, all the way to being totally absent. To give you an example, when looking at institutional support or absence of support, we've looked into different types, such as technological infrastructure, financial resources, or instances of communication channels. For example, the institution could have basic infrastructure available across the institution or infrastructure localized in a specialized area, such as a specific faculty or department that may have adopted a teaching and learning software or technology. We are also looking into the different type of assistance and who is providing it, such as the library or maybe the open education librarian, and it could also be Center for Teaching and Learning. If you want to access the tool, it is available on the Inclusive Education Research Lab website in both English and French.
The primary objective of this study was to investigate and enhance the capacity of Ontario post-secondary institutions to support open education practices through a system-wide assessment. To achieve this, ISAT2 was developed, translated, and released under an open license, with invitations sent to provosts at all public post-secondary institutions in Ontario, including universities, colleges, and Indigenous institutes in both Anglophone and Francophone contexts. The data collection phase was hosted on Qualtrics and was conducted between February and July 2024. Participants were asked to complete an online survey consisting of 28 questions, 23 multiple choice, and 5 open-ended. While participants could delegate this task to a colleague better positioned to answer questions about institutions' support for OEP, it was emphasized that the survey link was unique to each institution and should not be shared outside of it. The survey took approximately 30 minutes to complete and was not timed, allowing participants to save their responses and complete the survey across multiple sessions if necessary. If participants encountered questions they could not answer, they were encouraged to consult with the relevant colleagues to provide the most accurate responses. This resulted in 21 out of the 54 invited institutions, about 39%, completing the self-assessment instrument. This included 13 out of the 24 colleges, representing 54%, 6 out of the 24 universities, which constituted 26%, and 2 out of 6 Indigenous institutes, making up 33%.
eCampus Ontario is a not-for-profit organization funded by the Ontario Ministry of Colleges and Universities. We support innovation, collaboration, and education in all of Ontario's colleges, Indigenous institutes, and universities. We provide the sector with platforms and programs to advance digital participation in post-secondary education. A significant component of our work is supporting open education. Our open library, the largest in Canada, provides a significant number of open educational resources as well as many activities. Through the open library, we provide our sector with OER as well as tools and practices to increase open educational practices in Ontario. Over the past 3 years, we supported Ontario's virtual learning strategy, which invested $35 million into open educational resources. Our focus now is on ensuring these resources are used, reused, and adapted, helping to grow open educational practices in Ontario.
As you might imagine, this study yielded far more results than we would be able to cover in this brief lightning talk, so instead I will share just a few highlights from this work, starting with institutional visions. Overall, all but one institution reported that their vision considered OEP to some degree. Specifically, 33% considered it in a limited incidental or informal fashion. Another third reported that their institutional vision considered how OEP support existing learning and teaching practices. 25% reported that their institutional vision considers the need for changes in culture, policies, or practices to embrace OEP, and just 5% reported that their institutional vision doesn't just embrace OEP, but in fact is being studied or emulated by other institutions. When probed for specifics concerning their institutional vision, the most common responses reference student success, followed by pedagogical innovation, student savings, and educator flexibility. Looking at internal partnerships, all but one institution reported at least one such partnership to support OEP. This was most commonly with the Centre for Teaching and Learning, or CTL, at 86%, followed by the library at 81%, and in some cases also with other units such as the campus store, Office of the Registrar, or academic or curricular leads. Both with the Centre for Teaching and Learning and with the library, you can see that in some cases the partnerships were limited, incidental, or informal, in some cases limited to one-off projects, and in some cases still localized or limited term in nature. But in both cases, the bulk of the distribution lay at the very top of the spectrum, with ongoing and sustainable partnerships that were reflective of a long-term commitment to supporting OEP. Looking at internal supports, nearly all responding institutions, 90%, responded having at least some funding or other resources to support OEP. You have a sense of the distribution over here, with 37% having this in a limited, incidental, or informal fashion, 16% having it localized in some areas of the institution, 26% reporting that these resources were basic but available across the institution, and 11% saying that they are robust and available across the institution. Funding was, of course, the most common form of support, but other forms of assistance available, certainly the top part of the distribution, included support for designing and implementing open pedagogy through the CTL, support for discovering OER, the use of technologies or platforms to support OEP, professional development, and support for hosting or showcasing OER. Looking at dimensions of culture change, you can see that 90% of institutions reported that awareness of OEP exceeded little to no awareness, and that when it comes to the utilization of available resources to support OEP, 63% of institutions reported that this exceeded little to no uptake. At the low end of the spectrum, relatively weaker dimensions of internal support included having a formalized structure or specialized center, having robust student partnerships, institutional incentives or rewards, research support for OEP, curricular integration, and at the very bottom, policy support. We look forward to sharing the full results of our work at a webinar at the end of October hosted by eCampus Ontario, followed by the formal launch of a province-wide report at the Teaching and Education Seminar and Showcase in November 2024. Individual institutions that participated in this work will receive customized reports with recommendations for how they can further build their capacity to support OEP in their context. And finally, we continue to collaborate with other partners and jurisdictions that are interested in assessing their capacity to support OEP. Thank you.